In this video, I'm going to show you how to create a system with no code that'll turn your spreadsheets into dynamic data. This means you'll be able to ask any specific questions about your spreadsheet, generate detailed reports, receive actionable suggestions, and most importantly, create visual charts and graphs that actually bring your data to life. We'll go step by step from actually setting up the database to connecting it with AI tools that are going to be doing the heavy lifting for you, all without needing to write a single line of code. We'll start by taking a raw spreadsheet, something with thousands of rows that might seem overwhelming at first, and upload it into a database. Once the data is in place, we'll just connect it to our system that makes interacting with your data super easy. So you will see how to turn your static spreadsheets like a Google Sheet, Excel spreadsheet, whatever, into interactive, queryable data sets. You'll also see how you can use natural language to ask questions like, can you give me a report on the Department of Treasury, just covering the past 10 years? And you could also have it generate automated reports that just summarize key trends, give you insights, suggestions, and also create visualizations like line charts, radar graphs, and bubble charts, whatever it is, making it easy to spot the patterns and compare the metrics. So stick around because by the end, you'll have a fully functional system that simplifies data analysis, eliminates manual tasks, and gives you powerful tools to make data-driven decisions. Real quick, I just wanted to mention that if you're a business owner looking to implement AI agents and other custom AI solutions into your company to increase your bottom line, check out the link below to apply to work with us. And if you're looking to learn and do everything yourself, I'm also opening up 3 more spots to work directly one-on-one with me. So whether you want to start your own AI automation agency and land clients, or just automate your business yourself, I'll help you achieve your goals. You'll also get full access to my resources, templates, and in-depth tutorials. Now, to give you guys a quick demo of this system, what we're going to do is we're going to come into NoCo, and I'm just going to click on my chart that we have uploaded already. So we're going to be using this as our dummy data. It's just some public information I found regarding the US's financials. So let's take the Department of Energy. So I'm just going to copy that. And let's say I want to understand the Department of Energy's, let's see, what can we get specific about? Perhaps the net cost. Yeah, so we'll just go to our agent, and we're going to say, what was the Department of Energy's net cost in 2023? So I'm going to type that in, and I'll come back to you guys once it generates a result. Okay, so it says based on the data retrieved from the NoCo database, I can answer your question. Here's a breakdown of the financial info from the Department of Energy. Here's the gross cost, earned revenue, subtotal, change in assumptions, and net cost. So it did come back with a little bit more, but in just making a few tweaks, this can be totally production ready. Next up, what I'm going to say is, can you just generate a visual for me? Put this into a chart so I can understand it better. Now, it's just going to take a second, and it's going to run through this other scenario, and it's going to create an actual chart. So I'll come back to you guys once this is also generated an output. Okay, it's been about 15 seconds, and here's what it came back with. So it says I've generated a bar chart to visualize the Department of Energy's financial data from 2023. Here's the chart. You can see Department of Energy financial data in billions, and we could scroll down. We can see the gross cost, the earned revenue, and the net cost. Then it just provides some summaries. So it says this bar chart provides a visual representation of the Department of Energy's financial data. Here's the gross cost. And then it just makes some relative insights. And also it's saying, as you can see, the net cost is significantly lower than the gross cost. Now I'll say, can you turn this into a organized report? Another 20 seconds have passed, and here's an organized report for the Department of Energy. So as you can see, it's all summarized nice like. We can see the key figures up at the top, visual representation, data analysis. It's going over the gross cost a little bit more, the earned revenue, the net cost, financial efficiency. So it's making suggestions and interpretations about all of this, and even the conclusion. So it's just wrapping everything up. Now we can ask literally any question about this spreadsheet. So if I wanted to know the railroad retirement board, and I can even pull up the Department of the Interior, and I want to find out what has happened in the past 10 years. So if I go to Department of State, and I'm just going to say, can you create a similar report, but for the Department of State covering the past 10 years? I'm going to let this run in the back end for just a few seconds, and I'll show you what this comes back with as well. Okay, it just finished up. It says here I'm going to compile the comprehensive report. Here's a Department of State financial report from 2024 to 2023. So the executive summary, it's providing that at the top, the financial overview with a chart right here, just covering the 10-year trends, which is kind of insane. The key figures, so the fiscal year, the gross cost, earned revenue, and net cost. So we can make this a little bit wider perhaps to make it a little bit more presentable, but these are minor tweaks to the system that we have to make to just make it production ready. And this really didn't take me too long to put together. So we see the gross cost trends, we have earned revenue patterns, net cost analysis, financial efficiency. So you can see that this is a spreadsheet containing how many rows? I think 3,000 rows in here particularly. Yeah, so it's quite expansive. So you can do this with 10,000, 20,000 rows. That's why we're using NoCo, because it allows us to import massive quantities of data. And we could turn this into actionable reports. So if you want a report every Monday, every 2 weeks, or once a month, and if you're having to do this yourself manually, all you have to do is just instruct the agent how you're kind of going about it, and then it will just create the prompt and the system in a similar fashion. Now, how do we actually build this out, and what did I do in particular? First, I want to shout out Derek Chung for kind of giving me this idea, and watching his video has allowed me to kind of spur off of what he's built. So what we're doing is we're using a few different tools within our stack here. 1, we're using n8n to build this in the backend. 2, we're using NoCo, and this, as I mentioned, is going to allow us to interact with and just import all of our massive quantities of data. And also we're going to use QuickChart. QuickChart is just an API that allows us to create graphs, so we can make requests from our workflows within n8n pretty easily. Now, obviously, you want to start with a spreadsheet. So I'm just going to use one of the US's publicly available sheets going over the financials of all these different agencies. I forget the exact name of this type of piece of data, but again, it's kind of irrelevant. What you want to do is you first want to come into NoCo, so just search up NoCo DB, and you'll want to sign up for a free account. So you can use the cloud, or you can host this on your own server if you would like. And what we've done is we just imported our CSV. So I have my CSV right here. I just named it US, and we have our table right here. This is kind of the extent of everything that you have to do within NoCo. Particularly, what you want to do next is we want to actually connect this to n8n. So what we're doing is we're calling an HTTP request. So whenever we're sending a message, like what I've said in the past, can you create a similar report, but for the Department of State covering the past 10 years? So we're having that be our chat input, and then we're going to send this off into an HTTP request. And if you don't understand what HTTP requests are or how they work, then check out my previous videos going over how you can connect to any API without there being any native integrations within the backend that you're using, make.com, Zapier, or n8n. So make sure to check out that video. Now, within this HTTP request, we're going to be using the get method, and we're just going to call the endpoint within NoCoDB. And to get that, all I really did is I go to NoCoDB, and I'll just type in API documentation, and you'll be able to find literally anything that you need into here. You can even search it if you would like, but this will be able to provide you the endpoints that you're going to be needing for any specific functions and use cases that you're trying to get out of using this specific platform. So feel free to pause this video and copy what I'm typing in. But what I'm doing right here is I'm just calling the API to get my table in here. So I have 2 different tables, or bases, I guess. Here's a getting started base, and here's a US base. These might actually be referred to as projects. I'm not going to focus too heavily on the jargon. Yeah, so we're getting our table right here, and we can see I listed out ML as my table. And if I go into here, all I'll have to do is just go to these 3 dots, and we'll see our table ID. So let's say we have multiple different tables. Extent of all the manual operations that you will have to do. So there will be some human effort, which is 1, typing in the input, obviously, of whatever you need. 2 is putting in your table ID. So if you have different tables, you will have to manually identify which one it is. You can go extensively and build out the system to automatically identify which one it is, but more often than not, it's just going to be a safer play to just put into your n8n base whatever your table ID is. So that's what I'm doing right here. And then I'm putting in my API token, and you will also have to put in, I will show you really quick. You'll also have to put in a host. So if you're hosting this on the cloud, which is kind of what I recommend for really any beginner, is to just host this on the cloud. That means you're not hosting it on a server locally or anywhere else. You're just using the website, and you can just paste this in if that's the case, and then put your API token right here, which you can grab from, if I go to my settings, and then you'll just go to API tokens, and you'll literally just copy and paste that in there. So I don't want to show off my tokens, so I'm not going to do that here. And that's all you have to do right here. So if I test this step out, it's going to grab my table. we could see all the different information here. So I'll go to the schema. We could see my table right here. So the table name, the title of it, any specific tags, and other metadata within here. So, you know, when was this field created, whatever. It's very expansive. So we kind of want to just condense this information and know what we're looking at. So what we really need to get is the columns. We don't really have to focus on the session ID or input right now. Biggest thing is the columns. I wanted to grab, it would be best if I showcase, give you guys a visual high level look. So we have all these different columns. So the record date, the statement fiscal year, the calendar year, calendar quarter, and all of that. So I need our agent to understand what all these columns are that we're getting from our table. You know, we can just manually write out and give it to our agent, but you know, if we're trying to automate this as much as possible and have this be kind of frictionless for our experience, then it's probably best to map this out. So what I'm doing is I'm just typing in columns. So I'm setting a field. What I did is I just talked to Claude and I had Sonnet just write out a expression for me to basically stringify the columns for me. So it's going to list out all of them right here. So we have record date, statement fiscal year, restatement flag, agency name. So what you can do in particular, if you're trying to do this for yourself with a different CSV, what I would do is I would just copy your input. I would give that to Claude and have it write out a similar expression. And that'll allow you to get an output. So it'll come back like this. It'll just be a nice and succinct response right here. I'm also putting in my session ID in the input. I spelled input wrong, but that's okay. So we're going to be using the session ID for this buffer memory, but I'll get into that in a second. Next up, we'll focus on this AI agent right here. Now, this is a tools agent. This is going to be kind of the most common agent that you'll be using if you are going to be using n8n. So let's open this up. The text that we're giving it, it's literally just going to be the chat input from right here. So just for ease of identifying it, I put my chat input in here. So whenever I'm typing, hey, can you create me a report? I'm not going to type it now, but it'll go into this edit fields and it'll set that field for me so I can reference it at really any point that I would like. So that's what I'm doing right here. All I'm doing is dragging and dropping this input right here and putting it right there. Next up in this system message, I'm saying you're a helpful data analysis expert skilled with working with NoCodeDB, a database tool, and you are tasked to help the user understand the table that they mentioned. Here's the columns to the table for context. All I'm doing is just dragging this over. Now, this little snippet right here is going to be in regards to this separate workflow. And this workflow is going to be creating the visuals and the charts for us. So keep that in mind. But all I'm really saying is if you generate a chart and if you go down that path to call that tool, you should also know that you are a visualization expert. When provided with a chart URL, return it using Markdown. This is super important. Return it using Markdown so that the chart image displays in line. Here's an example format. And I just provide an example format that I need for the visualizations to show. And next up, I'm just using Claude. To be honest, I didn't even test it out with GPT. You know, perhaps if you're using GPT 4o, I'm assuming it would perform just as well. Perhaps it might not go through the better reasoning functions that Claude typically goes through, but you know, this suffices. So that's what I tested out and I probably like it. So next up, we have the Windows buffer memory. Within here, this is going to provide context to our agent. So if I wanted to bump this up to 20, then it's going to remember the past 20 conversations. So I guess we could do that. And then I'm just inputting the key as the session ID. So we're getting the session ID just from this chat message right here. Next up, we have the create visual/chart. And this is going to actually call this workflow that's right here. We also just have it. I also put it down here just for putting everything in one spot, all shown on the screen. Now, I'm just putting the name as visual. The description is call this tool when necessary to create a chart. All string values must be properly escaped, especially for multi-line strings. Now, I'm identifying the workflow, and all I'm doing is I'm getting the workflow ID from right here up at the top, and I'm inputting this into the workflow right here. For the name, I'm putting a description. I'm using a string, and I'm putting in the JSON input. So this is going to be the chat input that I'm typing. So if I go to mapping, I'm just taking this input right here, dragging it right there. So in this case, I'm saying like, can you create a similar report? What that's doing is it's sending all that, that request to this separate workflow right here. And we'll get into that in just 1 second. And that's all I'm doing right there. So we're not specifying input schemas. We're keeping this as simple as possible. Lastly, we just have NoCodeDB. So make sure you connect your credentials similar to how you did within here. If you created this first, and you'll also have your API token already created. So it's pretty simple. You'll just have to open this up. We see our credential right there. Now, what I'm going to be doing is getting many rows from here. So hook up your workspace name, hook up the base name, and then also the table name or ID. So we're just kind of selecting that. You could also put in an expression where you could just put in your table ID right there. Now I'm setting the limit as to 50. It doesn't really matter. Now For this part, we created a particular formula to call our records and create the filters to sort through the data sheet right here. And how I kind of came about this, one, I was noticing that when I was trying to make calls, so when I would say generate a report on the Department of Treasury, wouldn't call the proper agency's name, and it wouldn't grab the associated records that I needed, or the column I should say, like the earned revenue. So I was basically iterating with Claude to kind of just help me create a formula that will allow me to filter my query searches a little bit better. So, I didn't create this myself. All I did is I just pasted in my inputs, I gave it to Claude, and I had it write something out to allow me to filter, or I should say query a search by filtering some things out and specifying some things. So yeah, I won't go into that too much more. It's as simple as just iterating with the resources that you have available. Lastly, we have the create visual/chart. So this is where we are going to focus on this separate workflow. So again, this is the same as this workflow right here. I just put it into here for ease of convenience. All I did is hook up an execute workflow trigger, and we're connecting that to an AI agent. So the input data right here, it's going to be the JSON query that we're getting from this chat message right here. So whenever I'm asking something in this chat message, it's going to be sent into the query from the execute workflow trigger, and then we're just dragging and dropping that into here. The system message, it's quite lengthy. So I'm saying your task is to generate accurate, well-labeled, and valid chart.js configuration objects based on user requests. The configurations should be immediately usable in chart.js environment to create visualizations. So to interact with quick chart, we just have to make sure that everything's going to be in a very specific format. So we can see if we scroll down here, it's kind of giving us some examples. It's also showing off some of the visualizations. But if you have any issues generating this, they do have quite lengthy documentation on helping you out. So when in doubt, just refer to this documentation, even paste it into GPT or Claude, and it'll be able to kind of work with you to help you achieve whatever your use case is in particular. Okay, so let me go back. So I'm just making sure that we have this in chart.js environment. So I'm providing it with an input. I'm saying you will process user requests describing desired visualizations. The requests may include chart type, labels, colors. But yeah, I'm just providing it some examples. And further, what I'm doing beyond that is one, I'm requiring a specific output format. So normally when this is generating an output, it's not formatting it into the particular output that I would like to, for lack of better terms. So we're using a structured output parser. And what we're doing right here is we're having it just come back with a very particular output. So we're having it say, hey, I need you to take this prompt, and whatever you come back with, I need you to run it through this output parser so that what it does come up with is going to be in this specific format. And this is just more agreeable with creating charts. Creating a chart, it's going to be contingent on a very specific structure. So that's kind of how I determined the demand of having this. And again, I had Claude help me write this. So I'm not doing any of this myself. I don't know how to code. And then I'm returning an edit fields. So in the edit fields, all we're doing is making a call to a quick chart. So we're saying quickchart.io/chart. We got this endpoint from the documentation once again. So refer to the documentation when you don't know what to do. So we're describing the width, and we're providing it with the response that we're getting from this AI agent right here. Now, what this all comes back with is kind of what I highlighted earlier in the video, but that's really everything that is happening here in the back end. It's not anything that's too crazy. It's not the most complex of systems. It's just making a few calls to uncommon softwares. So I'm just going to type out what agency had the highest spend, or I'll say what agency name, because that's the column name. So we might want to be a little bit more specific. Had the highest, let's see. We could call it earned revenue. So I'll go back. Had the highest earned revenue in past 20 years. Can you create a report on it? So I'm going to create a report on this, and it will take a second to run. So maybe 30 seconds or so. But I mean, that's to be expected from creating this heavy of contextual requests. So it's going through AI and talking through what it's finding within the sheet. It's also connecting to quick chart and making the calls there. But let's see what it came back with. So we'll go to the chat, and we will go to the top, and we see, based on the data provided, I can now create a report on the agency with the highest earned revenue in the past 20 years. Let me analyze the information and prepare the report for you. So we could probably have this, remove this piece right here. It's not totally necessary. So all you have to do in that case is just go to your AI agent and describe, whatever iterations you need to make. So I could just say something in this use case like only provide me with a report, or exactly what I asked. Don't say here's based on this data provided, whatever, you get the idea. So here's the report, federal agency with the highest earned revenue from 2004 to 2023. So here is the executive summary. So you'll find that it is quite detailed, and it's coming back with some pretty profound analyses. So after analyzing the available data for federal agencies over the past 20 years, the Department of Health and Human Services emerges as the agency with the highest earned revenue. In the fiscal year 2023, HHS reported an earned revenue of $161 billion, significantly outpacing other federal agencies. So it's coming back with key findings. It's coming back with comparative analysis, visual representations, and you could describe how you would like these visuals to be reported back to you. You know, if you want pie charts, line graphs, whatever. So analysis of HHS's high earned revenue. So here's the scope of services that they offer. So, I mean, it's crazy because this information, it's not even in here. So it's literally finding this publicly available information and making analysis off of it and providing them within a report. So it says the healthcare sector, the significant revenue is indicative of the size and importance of the healthcare sector in the US economy. Here's the implications, and then here's the conclusion. So this is a pretty profound report. And a lot of the times it could be doing a better job than half of the humans who are actually making these themselves. So, I mean, instead of having to write reports, you can just work on higher value activities and more creative things. So that's essentially it, and really everything that I wanted to cover. So I really just wanted to showcase this demo and, you know, what's been built here. And again, shout out to Derek Chun for kind of helping me create this by watching his video. So make sure to go check him out as well. But yeah, again, this is probably one of the craziest systems that I have built out myself, and I'm really interested to see if you guys can create anything that spurs off of this and kind of what you would create with it. But anyways, we're really seeing how these agents are coming to fruition, and you know, it's only a matter of time before they completely change the small businesses and not only just changing the enterprises that are actually building out these agents right now. So yeah, just wanted to showcase this off. And again, if you're a business owner looking to implement similar AI agents and custom AI solutions to increase your bottom line within your company, then you can apply to work with us. Link is down below in the description. And if you're looking to learn and build these agents yourself and start your own AI automation agency or look to land your first client, I have just a few more spots available to work directly one-on-one with me, where I guarantee that you will achieve your goals. So you can get the link for that down below. But anyways, I really appreciate you guys checking out this video, and I will see you in the next one.